We are now continuing with the agenda. So we have one big item left on the agenda today, and it's the tips update. So we're shifting topics a little bit. So still target services, but we're now moving to tips. As Maito already mentioned, SMIC, of course, has an impact on all of the different target services. So in this way, it's still very connected. The presentation will be done by Karen, and I'm just checking that Karen is with us now and she can hear me and speak.
Good morning, Aileen. Yes, I can.
Good
Can you
morning,
hear me
Karen.
as well?
Yes, we hear you. Very good. If you switch on your camera, maybe we can see you.
Right. Can you see me well?
I don't see you yet. We're seeing you. Perfect. Thank you. Over to you.
I'd like to share the presentation. Actually, I'm not... Good. I think I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's coming. Perfect. Just patience is good here with WebEx. It takes a few seconds. There we are.
And I'll do that in presentation mode.
Perfect.
Yes, indeed. So thank you very much, Aileen. Thanks to everyone here. I'm going to say a few words of introduction about myself, and then I will be talking about a recent Governing Council decision that has been made about the pan-European reachability of instant payments in TIPS. So my name is Karen Birkel. I'm at the ECB since 2009 and the head of division of our market infrastructure development division, a division responsible for the projects and product management in market infrastructures at the ECB. I've have a lot of experience in T2S, also the operations of Target 2, as well as TIPS. I was the project manager of the TIPS assessment phase and responsible for the operations of TIPS. And before that, I was also involved in market infrastructure in various institutions in the trading, CCP, and the settlement area. So that's just a little bit about me. And now I'm going to be taking you through my presentation. First of all, I'm going to set the scene a bit. I'm going to talk about why there is or was a need to take concrete action to have pan-European reachability. Then I'll talk about the exact measures that the Governing Council decided in July this year to support the instant payments in Europe. And then last but not least, I'll try to answer the question, at least in a high level, on what the stakeholders, what you need to do as a next step. So what do ACHs and payment service providers need to do? Why do we need concrete actions, you might ask yourselves? Now, we've been told and we have seen that action is needed. The EU has set a strategic objective to take on board instant payments as a solution for the European market. And together with the ACHs, we believe that we can meet that strategic objective to be a basis, a backbone for the take-up of instant payments as a new norm in Europe. Basically, we had the difficulties that payment service providers said to us they hardly have any chance of being 100% reachable. And as they are, SET Inst compliant, they must be reachable, and they were not able to do that in the current situation. So here we see that both the markets, so the PSPs, and the European Commission also signaled that the Eurosystem has to do something to ensure the pan-European reachability. We stepped up, we took action. The Governing Council decided, as part of the retail payment strategy, to explore the options to ensure the pan-European reachability of instant payments. And there is a package approved for that. I'm going to be telling you more about that as well. But first of all, we'll take a step back to how this all happened and how we got to the measures that we have now put in place. In January 2020, we conducted a survey in the AMI Pay. Now, many of our AmiPay members are present today, and you will know what I'm going to be saying next. So we have asked you to, tell us how we can achieve pan-European reachability for instant payments. And we presented those results in February 2020. Just a few excerpts from those statements or those requests that we have received from you. And I'd like to tell you, or to just echo what you've said to us. Basically, you said to us that we need to step up to facilitate the interoperability that is needed to pay and to be paid from a single liquidity pool. Now, the Eurosystem must support the market, and here are two pillars, you said to us. It should be enough for a PSP to participate in only one CSM to be reachable pan-European on a pan-European level. And we should be putting something in place to ensure a cross-CSM settlement. You also said to us that it's important that you can connect to the provider of your choice. You need one connection only and one pool of liquidity flowing between the different actors in that backbone for instant payments. So those are some of the comments that you gave us. Now, some further comments that were very important to us that you mentioned. A clear request was made to us that we should have the opportunity of offering accounts to ACHs and CSMs in TIPS as a central liquidity hub. We should work on our participation model, you said to us, and having that technical and business interoperability. TIPS should be positioned as a super CSM, and the adherence to TIPS should be mandatory, is something that you also mentioned to us. Further, a few general comments. What else did you say to us? You should have the choice. So PSPs would like to have the choice of one or more CSMs, so ACHs or TIPS, and also whether you'd like to do your instant payment business in central bank money or in commercial bank money. You need to have a very efficient liquidity management, and we're listening to that to have one backbone for managing your liquidity in instant payments. There needs to be efficiency of payments processing, and here efficiency of payments processing can be interpreted in many ways, but the way I think about it in my favorite way is that people, the general public, do not want to stand in the queue and wait for a payment to go through at a cashier or to wait for an app to respond in a very long time. So we need efficiency, and we need that across Europe. We need settlement certainty, meaning we need settlement finality, immediate settlement finality, whether it's in one ACH, whether it's across different ACHs or in TIPS, there's a need for immediate finality of the payment. Then there is also the responsibility of PSPs to be addressable. And I've mentioned that before. It is a responsibility if a PSP is ECT-INS compliant, that you're reachable in a pan-European way. So those are some of the inputs that we received that put us on our journey for putting in place the measures that the Governing Council has now approved. And I'd like to thank everybody for your comments. It has helped us, and many of you are here today, so thank you for that. And I want to give you the good news up front already that these measures are addressing the comments that you gave us. Now I'm going to be talking about the measures that are addressing those comments, as I mentioned to you, from the AmiPay survey. The decision was made on the 27th of July, the 24th of July in 2020 this year, so quite recently, and you have probably seen our publication on the website. The Governing Council took significant steps to support the full deployment of instant payments across the euro area, and here I see this as a very strategic move. I hope all of us see it in the same way and can step up together in the strategic direction to make instant payments the new norm. So what are these measures in the decision? I can read it out to you. Importantly is that all PSPs who have adhered to the SET-IN scheme and are reachable in Target 2 should also be reachable in a TIPS central bank money account. So here being either a participant, a TIPS participant, or as a reachable party. Being a reachable party means that you're reachable through a TIPS account of another PSP. Now, the word should could create a bit of confusion, but when a central bank says should, or when a public authority says should, they mean must. So here, those PSPs that are SET-INS compliant and reachable in Target 2 must become reachable in TIPS as well. So the use of the TIPS central bank account is required, but it does not impose that you must use that account for the settlement of instant payments. Now, of course, we would like you to use the TIPS account as for settlement on instant payments, but you could also use that as a pure liquidity account. How this measure will be applied. Let's become more practical. It applies to both directly connected and indirectly connected SET-INS compliant Target 2 participants, and we will be updating the Target 2 guideline to fit with the new paradigm. So it means that if you're a PM account holder and you adhere to the SET-INS scheme, you will be required to hold a TIPS DCA or be reachable via another TIPS DCA. The same would be for indirect participants or addressable BICs who adhere to the SET-IN scheme. They will also be required to hold a TIPS DCA or be reachable via another TIPS DCA holder. Our second measure actually puts all instant payments that the Eurist system offers onto one platform. So currently you know that we offer to the ACH as a solution via RZ6, the ancillary system number 6. And the second measure addresses the ACHs that offer services through the ancillary systems, and they would have to migrate their technical accounts from Target to TIPS. Now, that is also in a way very strategic because putting all the instant payments on one platform really creates that interoperability and make sure that we are reachable 24/7, 365 across all the ACHs and TIPS and PSPs. So the point here is that you can be anywhere in the chain of systems, chain of ACHs or TIPS, and be reachable by anybody else in that network. This was previously not the case. Now, just a word on what that means also for the ACHs. ACH is currently already in TIPS as an instructing party, would have minimal changes, actually, very minimal changes to be pan-European. And ACH is offering instant payments through RZ6, but not yet in TIPS. They will, of course, have a few more changes to make related mainly to messaging formats. Of course, ancillary systems will continue to exist in Target 2, but for instant payments, if an ancillary system offers instant payments, then they need to migrate to TIPS. I'd like to recap a little bit about the benefits that these measures will bring. I've talked about them a little bit here and there, but just to put them all on the same page, the Pan-European Reachability Package really makes sure that we are all reachable. Each PSP, each ACH is reachable across the whole chain. So it doesn't matter which ACH or TIPS you are using, or if you're using TIPS, if you're using instant payments in this network of instant payments, then you will be reachable all over. This helps you as well to become really and truly SET-INS compliant. It's very important because and one of those conditions of the SET-INS compliance is that you are reachable, and that's currently not easy to achieve. There isn't any more a fragmentation of the liquidity pool, a removal of liquidity traps, meaning on the weekend or at any time, 24/7, 365, liquidity can move throughout this entire interoperable network. That is really the good news. We don't have the credit risk issue anymore, potentially that we might have had, for example, for a cross ACH settlement. We have instant finality across the entire chain. So there's no cycles. It's truly instant, the payments in the new paradigm. And of course, we have the 24/7 availability for funding and defunding those accounts, those ACH accounts that are in TIPS. This is currently not the case because they're now at the moment restricted to the target 2 opening times. And PSPs can decide to send payments either internally in their ACH from the ASI technical account or use their TIPS account. So this, I believe, I hope you agree with me, enables instant payments as the new norm and plays the backbone of, in terms of infrastructure for the entire Europe for instant payments. Just maybe to reflect again what the current situation is today, instant payments can't cross the line between 2 ACHs, so it remains internal into 1 ACH. And the system doesn't work cross-border. And what we're putting in place is really to enable the entire Euro area to work together, with the ACHs and TIPS being the backbone and allowing the PSPs to have full reachability. It allows us to embrace and to embark on the instant payments journey together. Now, which options would a PSP have in future? And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later as well, in terms of the readiness of for the new paradigm. So PSPs need to decide on their participation model. They have options. They can instruct in an ACH and settle in an ACH. They can also instruct in 1 ACH, settle in the TIPS DCA account. The ACHs would allow that. And then the other option they would have is they can instruct in TIPS and they can settle in the TIPS DCA directly. Of course, that depends where the counterparty is. If the counterparty account is in an ACH and you instruct into TIPS, then TIPS will take care of settling one side in TIPS on the DCA, and of course, taking care of the other side, forwarding that to the ACH to settle the other side as well. So there's just a little bit of more information on the different options that you have and the decisions that you need to make. I'd also like to show you which new business cases we can cover with this paradigm, and certainly what we have not had before is the funding and defunding between the TIPS DCA and the ACH's technical account and TIPS. So there'll be the possibility that you're funding and defunding on a 24/7, 365 basis, the ACH technical account and TIPS. You can process instant payments between 2 participants of different ACHs, where TIPS will become the link in between and make that chain work from beginning to end. That, of course, also pertains to recalls. And then, of course, the instant payments between the participant of an ACH and a TIPS participant. So that is what is opening up as new business cases out there. Maita spoke a little bit about the connectivity, and I'd like to just say a few words about that. The TIPS connectivity cost remains stable, so ESMIC is going to be fully in place for TIPS by November 2021, and that will be a 10 years contract. So here's also a heads up for everyone to take care of your ESMIC connection. The price for that, as you will see in the contract with your network service provider, is really a 0.002 euros as a transmission fee, and that is the maximum price that you would pay per transmission of an instant payment. Now you can have a look at the SIACOLT and the SWIFT maximum prices that they have published and speak to them about that. The message here is that you should not incur any additional once-off and fixed-off recurring costs if you're opting for the full configuration of the connectivity. So here, the positive message that I'd like to put forward to you here is that the connectivity for TIPS is very, very cheap. My last part of the presentation is about what you need to do now. So what do stakeholders need to do, and who are those stakeholders? So the ACHs, the PSPs, also the central banks need to step up now and start their projects. Actually, you heard in Dimitri's presentation earlier on about the milestones for readiness. And of course, here we are going to follow a very similar approach, the same type of framework where we are defining onboarding milestones, which are common to participants and will ensure or to support their go live readiness in a synchronized way. Now, the most important thing I want to say to you here as well is that the central banks are in the lead for the onboarding process. So please stay in contact with your national central bank to make sure that you are ready for TIPS in the new paradigm, not only for TIPS, but for instant payments in general. The central banks will be collecting feedback from each of you to see how you are doing against those key milestones. We'll be monitoring that in the Eurosystem and having a look at each of those countries' readiness and where they are. And we'd like you to consider these milestones for your internal adaptation. Of course, we are going to show you now soon a draft milestone plan, but we will be speaking to you and we'll be in consultation with you to finalize that as well. I mentioned a few things already. We have TIPS as it is today is almost ready to use. So there are actually very few changes that we need to make in TIPS to be able to be in the new pan-European reachability paradigm. In fact, PSPs can already start testing immediately without any changes. And the changes for ACHs who are already in TIPS as a reachable party are really minimal. You'll see that the report formats, messaging formats will be the same, and we are working on updating that the documentation that you will need. But the message here is that already what we have published online is probably around 90% of what you need. We are looking towards we have said already that we are going to publish the documentation in April 2021. However, we are looking at what we can publish earlier. But just to say that a PSP doesn't actually need any other documentation than what we have today, and ACHs also don't need really much more. They can also use the current UDFS as it is at the moment. There will be very few changes coming on top of that, and that will become clearer and also probably before April. I promised you an overview of our draft onboarding milestones, so very similar to what Dimitri presented earlier on. For the consolidation, we have onboarding milestones for TIPS. The only difference perhaps is that they are much earlier, so much more urgent. And here, perhaps let's look at what you need to do in Q1 to comply to these milestones. Would be by the end of January, you should in fact have your project set up. And it's to have that set up, you also need to think about your participation. Not only your TIPS participation, as it says here, but in general, your participation either in an ACH or in TIPS for the instant payments. It's a strategic decision that every institution needs to make on how they are going to participate in the instant payment. So we hope that you'll use the rest of this year to think about that also on a strategic level, and then have your project set up by the end of January. Furthermore, the milestones after that is about network service provider connectivity. You need to decide for your ESMIC contract that has to be in place by the end of the year, which NSP you're going to select. Now, currently we have SWIFT and SIA in TIPS already, and for ESMIC there will be the need for a change of the contract, to make contact with your connectivity provider, even if you are already in TIPS. And for ESMIC in general, as Maite said before, the connectivity starts much earlier than for consolidation, of course. So that is a matter of urgency to start your network service provider selection. We would like to see you starting to draft your internal documentation already in April, and complete your network service provider selection or the procurement by the end of March. In Q2, we also have a number of milestones, draft milestones. We would see that the internal documentation is drafted by the end of May 2021, and that you have started internal development if needed, of course. As I mentioned before, there may not be a need for, if you're a PSP, for further development, but if you're not yet in TIPS, there will be a need for development. By July, the network connectivity should start, the real connectivity, and that is what Q2 should bring to you and should be in your project plan at least, as high-level milestones. And in Q3, we're looking at having training being completed by the end of July, as well as the internal development on your side completed by the end of August, as well as the testing. In September, so on the 1st of September, the real user testing starts in TIPS. And that is very important to try and make that milestone to be on time for the start of production. In Q4, we have the contractual and legal agreements that need to be completed by the end of October, and onboarding activities are starting mid-November. So here we are already moving to production by a little bit more than a year, actually. We would like to see the go live then on the 15th of December. Maybe I'm showing you a slide now that says more or less the same as I said before, but just reveals what you need to do to start getting ready. So what needs to be really the focus of your planning and considerations for the Pan-European Reachability Program. What type of participation you will have, which changes you need at the network service provider level, internal development needed or not needed, and how to embark on that, training and testing that you might require. Your contractual and legal requirements need to be finalized, as well as all the connectivity requirements. Now I'm showing you that the same on a timeline. Here you can see that the user testing. So we have the release 3.0, which is not the TIPS reachability release. The release 4.0 will be our reachability change request will be in the release 4.0, which you will see will go live towards the end of next year. So the testing, as I mentioned before, the user testing of release 4.0 marked with a red bar in September 21 is an extremely important timeline that we need to target for to make it for the release 4 deployment to production and the pre-migration period after that. So that was a bit of an overview of what stakeholders need to do to be ready for the pan-European reachability paradigm. And this is the end of my presentation, more or less. I'd just like to leave you with two statements. And we're ready to embrace the new norm. We're ready to embrace instant payments as a new normal in Europe, and we'd like you to do that together with us, independent from where you are participating in an ACH or in TIPS. So don't become a blueberry. That means embrace instant payments. Don't let that wait while others around you are already improving their payments and their ability to process instant payments. Start your project early. Think about what you need to do to be fully reachable in a pan-European context. Thank you very much. Eileen?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the interesting presentation. So we're much more now mind. So there's been questions in the chat, but you have managed to respond to them during your presentation. So I'm ticking them off. So all good. In case there are more questions by the participant, you're always welcome to send us an email after the event as well. So thank you, Karen, very much for this. And we can unplug you and plug in our last speaker for today, which will be Dimitri. So Dimitri is closing today's focus session. And maybe Dimitri, you can just remind me again about my changing of my tattoo, because I'm going to go down and do it today. So if you can remind me again about what is the date that I should put on my lower back this afternoon. Thank you. Over to you.
I will not come and check, Eileen. So indeed, we are reaching the end now with this focus session. Well, I hope it was informative on your side. And let me just highlight a few takeaways from the discussion today. First, I think we all got it now that the new date, and Eileen, this is for you also, the new date for the go live for the T2 T2S consolidation is the 21st of November 22. And again, apologies for those beyond Eileen who would have to change their tattoo indeed. I think there was a question that was left unanswered when I explained or when I presented about the test cases, and I understand Maite has answered it already. So thank you for that, Maite. Well, obviously this time we did not ask questions about your preparation. It was time to share the timeline. Still, we hope that your preparation is still well underway. Well, bearing in mind that there is still a lot to be there on time. And the message I want to pass is, well, this rescheduling was not done to relax. Basically, it was done because this is what we had to do to absorb the impact of the two root causes I mentioned, so the COVID-19 and the revised timing for the migration of cross-border payments for to ISO 20022. Well, there is this is what we had to do to secure a smooth delivery and adaptation on your side, but please keep the momentum. There will somewhere be little understanding for those who would not be ready on time now. We heard also that the ESMIC connectivity is progressing well. Well, actually, you understood that the rollout of the new ESMIC connectivity will be done on a gradual basis, starting with TIPS in November 2021, then followed with T2S. It's a change of sequence, so followed with T2S in June 2022, to then reach T2, the new T2 platform, in November 2022, and ECMS will follow somewhere in 2023. And again, thank you for not putting in the chat too many questions about the go live date of ECMS. We heard today also that the network service providers are there and actually combat ready to support you in this process. We heard from Karen that target services is not just about the T2, T2S consolidation. There is also a lot happening on the area of tips. And Karen updated us on the new so-called reachability measures that are coming and that will support instant payment to become truly pan-European. Well, with the like we do for the T2 T2S consolidation, the last part of the presentation from Karen was indeed to confirm that we are ready to support. There will be a monitoring framework in place. So we will proceed like we do each time there is an initiative of that nature. Well, last but not least, I want to thank Deborah, Isabel, Marco, and Maite for the good panel. I get from the polls that it was really instructive. I also want to thank Karen for the clear explanation on tips. And last but not least, Eileen and the whole communication team behind us who made this be a success. I think we had at some point in time a peak of more than 800 people connected. It all went well, both technically and from the organizational perspective. Well done to the communication team. And what's left now is to wish you a good day. Take good care of you and your loved ones. And thank you for your attendance today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dimitri, for ending here. We just want to remind you again, everybody, that some of you have been asking, where are the presentations? Are they all gone live? So there's a lot of interest for the material. We want to ensure you that all the presentations have gone live now. So this is good news. So you can find them on the event page, the link that was sent to you before the event. Please also bear in mind that this afternoon or tomorrow, we will upload the videos from the event. So in case you miss certain parts, you can view them here. And then finally, my colleague would put on a slide in a minute that will show you our social media channels. And of course, we would invite you to join these, because it is on these channels that we update you on new events or new publications or anything that we publish. So it's the best way to stay tuned on what's happening is by following us either in the LinkedIn group or on our Twitter account. We're also investigating a potential newsletter that we could share news directly in your inboxes. So that's all for now. We want to thank you very much for joining. Thank you and goodbye for now.